Boom, 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 everybody. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you are having an amazing Saturday and an amazing weekend so far. I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion, where I like to say, hey, hold on. Yep. I had to turn that off there. Sorry. I'd like to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion, where I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades, and I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that I just love talking about.
Say hello to Motion
So you know the drill. Jump into the comments, say hey, where you tuning in from, so I can give you the shout out that you so richly deserve. Again, my name is Don Terrell, and we're going to have a fun conversation. Make sure that you hop on over to the Facebook group, get plugged in. Join in on the conversation. Definitely want you to be a part of the family and not miss out. Like I said, we have a lot of fun over there. The family is growing, and we always love new family members. I come from a large family, so I love large families. So make sure you join us over there, facebook.com/groups/The Color of Motion. I also want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor of the show, DG Graphics. They do all our overlays, animations, make us look good. And if you are a business or a brand that's looking to level up your brand content, clarify your message with 2D, 3D motion design and animation, you definitely want to reach out to them for sure. DG Graphics, always appreciate them being a big sponsor of the show, and supporting us, what we do here. What else? Oh, yes. The store is open. Make sure you hop on over to the shop, pick you up some swag. My mission is to see everybody, or as much as I can, see as many people as I can in some Color of Motion gear. We have some great hoodies, shirts, mugs. I'm constantly adding new stuff to it, so definitely want to see that. My only request is, if you do, just make sure you snap a picture of yourself, send it to me so that I can share it on the show, share it on the social channels, and give you some props there. So colorofmotion.net/swag. Go on and pick you up something and send it back on over to me, because I definitely want to see that for sure. Man, oh man, like I said, got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff I got planned for the Color of Motion. And, sorry. Let me hop back over here. The Color of Motion. Got a lot of new things that I'm planning. Definitely want you to not miss out. Like I said, Stowe's Art from Atlanta, Georgia. Appreciate you tuning in and showing up for sure. Want to make sure that we are broadcasting on all the channels. They are from YouTube, so I know the YouTube is showing up. Want to make sure we broadcast live each and every Saturday afternoon, like it is now, 3 p.m., live to the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, the Facebook group, and the website for the show. But I do always kind of highly encourage everybody to kind of get plugged into the YouTube channel. So hop over there, subscribe, hit the bell notification, comment, and be a part of the family. And there you can check out all the other past great guests that we've had on the show. Yep. Also, I always like to hear from the viewers as well there too, so you can connect with me on all my social channels. Follow me, shoot me a message. I definitely want to hear from you. Let me know what you think of the show, any things you might want me to do on the show, any potential guests you may want me to get on the show. But always looking to hear from the viewers. Um, just, how I can make this show the best possible show for you that I can. So definitely connect with me on all my social channels. Again, I hope you're as excited about this episode as I am. Been looking forward to sitting down talking with my next guest. It's going to be a fun conversation. I'm always, trying to make sure that I get all the housekeeping stuff out the way. I always, I feel like I always miss something, but I just roll with it. So I think I got everything. I think I'm ready to get this train on the tracks for sure. So without further ado, let's definitely get this show on the road. Yes. All right. We are back and ready to get this started. My next guest is a Toronto based line producer and artist. She's been working in the animation industry for the past 10 years, having graduated from Sheridan College in VFX and Computer Animation. She started out as a compositor on Paw Patrol and switched over to production 7 years ago. Most recently, having worked as a line producer on one of the 10 shorts for Kizazi Moto, Generation Fire, recently released on Disney Plus. I know a lot of you out there saw that. Like I said, that's the big thing from Disney now, Kizazi Moto. So looking forward to sitting down and really talking with her about that. She's passionate about the BIPOC movement and helping to advocate BIPOC people and creators in the animation industry. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Miss Amal Samuel. So happy to have you on the show. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this for a while, ever since we connected about a year ago. Like I said, super looking forward to sitting down and talking with you about some of the stuff that you've worked on, your journey in the industry, and then your thoughts on the industry. I always like to start out and ask, what was it that first got you interested in animation and VFX?
Well, funny enough, it was Shrek. I saw that when it first came out in like cinema, and I was like teenager at the time, so like I'm older than I look. um,
That's
so
hard to
uh, so
believe.
like so like I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so amazing. Like I mean, I've seen Toy Story when I was a kid, but like the graphics at the time weren't as what they are today.
Yeah,
But I feel like Shrek was like the first film that was like, like wow, like the graphics look great. Like even now, 20 years later, it still holds up.
yeah,
So and it was just funny, and I'm like, wow, like how do you get into this? So luckily I was still, like I said, in high school. So I hadn't figured out what I yet wanted to do. So I was trying to find any way I could get into like animation,
yeah,
or like some kind of field that was related to that. So I first went to Dawson College in Montreal because I'm from Montreal.
yeah.
So I did visual arts there, and then afterwards I went to Concordia University, and I first went to study accounting. So I was almost going to be an
Accounting.
accountant today, but I switched over to a program called computational arts. So they kind of teach you like how to do like Maya basically, and
Yeah,
like all different aspects of animation, or if you want to go into programming, that sort of thing. So that was my first like intro into that, but it was really Sheridan that was like the big like introduction to what
yeah.
animation and VFX is. And I went into VFX first because I thought like, oh man, this is so cool. And I was like shocked. I actually got in. I was like the only girl in my in my class that year because it was
Yeah.
pretty small. It was like fairly new. So it was like seven of us, and I was like the lone female.
Wow.
I was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. So do they have a do
Yeah.
they when you is it just applying or did you have to have like kind of a demo reel or portfolio
Oh,
work to
of
show
course you
them?
have to have a portfolio. Like I had like the stuff I did at Concordia. And like when I look at it now, I'm like, it's cringy. I'm like, how did I get into Sheridan with that? But I also did like my art stuff too. So like thank
Yeah,
goodness I
yeah.
had like my art background. So I somehow got in, and I learned a lot, but I felt like VFX wasn't really my forte. And at the time at Sheridan, it was like an open space room, and we had like three post grad programs all at the same time. So it was
Yeah.
computer animation, digital character animation, and VFX. It was like just an open space with cubicles. So I was always looking over at like the digital
Like what are they
animation
doing?
class. I was like learning from there. So I was like, man, I should have like gone into that because I felt like from my program at Concordia, like I didn't learn everything that I should have known in order to be in VFX. That's why like I had a bit of a hard time with
Mm,
it. But thank God for like my teachers. I will say like I've had some of the best teachers I've ever had in my life at
yeah.
Sheridan. So shout out to Mark Simon, um, Steve Sayers, everybody there. Like a few of them are retired now, but
Yeah.
at the time that I went back in between 2012 2014, it was like the best time. I'm glad I went when I did because like I had like fantastic teachers. And Oh yeah, I'm getting off track. So I saw yeah, so I was really interested in like what the computer animation and the digital character animation like courses were about, and I think I'm like one of the few people in I don't know if anybody else has done what I did, but I'm kind of like one of the few people that kind of did it backwards. Like I went into the second year program because visual effects and digital character were second year programs, and computer animation was a first year because basically you learn everything you need to know about animation through computer animation first, and then if you're interested, you apply to the VFX and the digital character after because they're more advanced. So I kind of did it opposite because I already had a bit of like the animation background first, and then I went to like the basics. But I'm so glad I did because I really, really enjoyed that year. That was one of the best years of my life,
Yeah.
like being in computer animation at Sheridan.
Yeah.
And I kind of combined what I knew in VFX with my grad film, which was a live action animation, which nobody else did that year. So that kind of opened a lot of doors for me, like getting my first job in the industry, which is how I became a compositor. On Paw Patrol, I grew a studio, so shout out to Guru. And yeah, and then from then on, I kind of stayed on the compositor direction for a couple of years, but then I felt like, I'm really interested in like how things are done behind the scenes. So I kind of was asking like the production team and producers, like, like how do you get in, like if you want to switch over. And it's not the easiest if you're an artist going into production, because for me, luckily, I had my business school background. That was really what helped me get my foot in the door for production.
Yeah.
And I started at like the very, very bottom. Like I was
Yeah.
a production assistant and I
Yeah.
started from the bottom. Now we're here, you know?
So what was it? What was it about? Was it the whole process of putting it together that really appealed to you, going on the production side?
Yeah, because I did study like production management in business school. So like it wasn't like too far off from what I already kind of knew. I mean, like I was more on the financial side when I was in business school, but I also learned like how to like manage as well. So, like I said, I always like that fact about like organizing and like
Mm,
overseeing like teams. So for me, that was kind of like, okay, well, I already know like the artistic side of it because I've studied the same software. I've trained the same way that artists are hired at studios to do. So I kind of had that dual like perspective of
yeah.
like I know like what the artists like need to know going in, and also like with production I can um, be that kind of like admin side too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when I was when I was working as an artist, I was always kind of like a little bit scared to talk to production because they always seem very like separate from the artist. So
Mm,
when I got into production, I was like, my whole thing was like, I want people to feel welcome to talk to me. Like, I don't want people to feel afraid to talk to me about anything. Like, if they
yeah.
have a problem, if they don't understand something, like, I want to best help how I can. And
Yeah.
like, at least like having been an artist first, like, I can best relate that way.
Yeah. You know that artist talk and how to, like I said, uh, that's like a coach of a NBA team who's played before. He understands
Yeah.
the players, that type of thing. Um, Going into like when you started to you first thought about going into the industry, was there any big like misconception that you had that you quickly kind of realized like okay, almost like the VFX, you thought you like it, but once you got into it, realized it wasn't for you. But as an industry as a whole, was there something that you kind of imagined that may have surprised you or wasn't the case necessarily?
Um, Well, it's definitely not what you expect when you get out of school, because, like, no matter what you learn in school, like, it won't compare to working in the industry. And I hope that more students today can kind of realize that, because as much as Sheridan, like, really prepared me, at least portfolio wise, and, like, kind of what to expect, like, you really
Yeah.
only, like, learn it once you're actually working in the industry. Because like for example, like for doing a grad film you have like 4.5 months to do it. So you kind of have your time to do it, and it's
Yes.
your idea, it's your own creation. But when you start working at a studio as a junior artist, you're working on someone else's schedule, someone else's show, and you can't take your time like you did in school. So
Yeah.
a lot of junior artists kind of like might be like a little bit, taken aback by how fast it is that you have to catch up with, like, the work that you need to do depending on which department you start work in. So like if you go into animation, you have to do a certain amount of like frame quota or like seconds if you're working in like 3D
Yeah.
per week. For backgrounds, like at least three like layouts or backgrounds a week.
Yeah.
You don't have like all week to take your time doing something. So I think that's pretty much the biggest challenge that people will see coming straight out of school into the industry. I mean, like for me that was a bit of a shocker too. For comp it's like the same thing. You need to at least like depending like 3 to 5 shots a week,
Yeah.
have it approved before you move on, and you have to get good fast.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
also a bit of a stress factor. So I think it's people who have the passion for it that will always like succeed.
Yeah.
For me, like in compositing, I did find it a bit challenging because I was like, oh man, like there's so much to learn that I didn't like fully learn in
Yeah.
school. So I was always asking like my leads and supervisors for help and stuff like that. And again, like don't be afraid to ask for help because a lot of people are, when they're new to the industry or it's their first job in the industry, they're like, like I don't want to bug this person, whatever. But if you
Yeah.
don't speak up, like people don't know, like, where you're at, and you can be like demoted fast if you don't, like,
Yeah, or kicked out
communicate
altogether.
or
That-
fired. So like
yeah,
you
kicked out
really,
altogether. Yeah.
yeah, you really got to like be good at what you do, ask lots of questions, don't be afraid to, if you don't know something, like ask that. That's what a supervisor is for. They're there to help you and make sure that, all
Mhm.
their deadlines are met too. But if
Yeah.
you're like lagging, then that is a problem. So
Yeah. 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 Do you do you feel like uh the difference in the studio that you may go into initially plays a part in that as well? So say like a smaller studio that's, may have the freedom to kind of, like I said, handhold you a little more than say if you just immediately jumped into a big studio like Pixar or Marvel or something like that. You think that made a difference? Well, I'm assuming you kind of went into a smaller studio, or your first kind of gig was at a smaller studio, or was it?
well, Guru is pretty like, a pretty decent sized studio. The biggest studio I've worked at was Bardell. So I've worked at like big studios, medium sized studios, small studios, and every studio is its own being. Like you
Yeah,
can't predict like how each studio is going to be. But I will say that bigger studios, there's not as much hand holding as there is in smaller studios because you don't feel, again, you feel like a little bit more comfortable if it's a
yeah,
smaller team and you get to know people faster in a smaller team as opposed to a big team because I've managed like groups, like teams of like, 15 to 70. And
yeah,
it's like a big difference because, like, on bigger studios, like, you have like bigger teams, and the supervisor is more the main person that, like, oversees everything about their team. We're not like as communicative, like, at
yeah,
least in my experience in production, like on at bigger studios. But in smaller studios, like you're more like hands-on, I would
yeah,
say. So like I prefer like the smaller studio aspect of like working in teams because you get to know people better. You can, like before COVID,
yeah, yeah,
like you would just go to somebody's desk and say like, hey, like, do you have a minute to chat? Like, I just need to go over something with you to make sure like, we're meeting our deadline, or there's an issue here. Like, how do you expect that to be like solved, kind of thing, instead of
yeah,
like having to like create a meeting and then make sure everybody's available and then they can talk about it.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's like, I would say like starting in the industry, for people who want to start, it's better to start in a smaller studio so you can get a better feel for it. You definitely will learn more in a smaller studio than at a bigger studio,
yeah,
at least from my experience. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, are you guys back in the studio, or are still a lot of people working remotely from?
Um, I can speak for Toronto studios.
Yeah,
At least my experience in the last 2 years, we're primarily remote, but some studios do have like hybrid work schedules. So you might like be able to go in like 1 or 2 days, but at least from what I understand, most studios are still like pretty much remote.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Again, everybody, just jumping in. We are having an amazing conversation with my friend Amal Samuel, line producer and artist extraordinaire. Mr. Ken, I appreciate you. Your stuff always comes in, maybe because you write so much Ken, on your stuff. It comes in so big. I appreciate you tuning in. Today's conversation, so delectable. He always has these words that I can't get through because they're just delectable, scrumptious,
All these
deliciously.
adverbs.
Yeah, he's very descriptive, but he is a diehard viewer, and I appreciate Ken so much for supporting the show. Uh, what were your what were your parents' initial thoughts when you or did they always know that you were, this was kind of what you wanted to do, or and what was it that made that small little shift into accounting when you started going into it?
Well, I come from a very academic like family background. Both my parents are professors, like university professors, and everybody in my family has like
Yeah.
PhD in science, except me. So
So
I was
you're the
always
black
kind of
sheep
like
of the
the
family.
I am definitely the black sheep of my family, at least. Because I've always just, arts was like, I was like always the artist,
Yeah.
growing up. And like that was the reason why I initially went to business school after doing like visual arts, because I was always good in math. So my dad was like, you better do something with that. So like, so I'm like,
Oh
okay,
man.
whatever. I'll go into business school to make you happy. So actually one of the hardest things I ever had to do was tell my dad like I really don't want to continue
Yeah.
business school and go to like art school again, and he was not thrilled about it. But ever since I've gone to Sheridan, he's kind of like he sees that like the animation industry is an industry in itself.
Yeah.
So he's like, I would hopefully say he's proud I went to Sheridan. So
Yeah, it's not
so
until you
yeah.
get a job, get into there, and like I said, they okay. It must be a
Yeah,
good viable industry to get into.
because honestly, like if I didn't go to business school, because I got into McGill for psychology, and I've always wanted to. I always saw myself as like I could be a psychiatrist. So like I always kind of wondered if I had gone that route, like I, be a psychiatrist and have my own practice today. That'd be kind of cool because I love like learning like how people think and
Mm.
behave, and I read lots of like psychology books. So like watch out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. So, well, I'm a
so yeah, that would
yeah. I
definitely
feel
be
you.
yeah.
I feel you. I'm a big proponent of like self development and how the brain works, how people think, how I think. So interesting for sure. And like I said, I know they're proud of you for what you decided to go and sticking with what you love. Um, was it an when you first started getting into doing production, working on the production
Mhm.
side and managing actually managing a team on a production, was that a how daunting of a thing for you was it to feel like to think, okay, now I gotta manage people on a production?
Um, I didn't really find it like too daunting. I kind of came naturally to me because like in business school you had to do like so much like team projects. So
Yeah,
it didn't feel like, you're learning everything by yourself. You're always working with a team. So for me, like I said, I started as, production assistant, like very, very entry level production assistant. The good thing about starting at a lower level, because these days you can go directly to being a production coordinator with like no background really, like as your first job,
yeah,
depending on what studio, like not all studios are the same, but in my case, like I started as production assistant. So it was really great training because you get to shadow a lot of like higher level people in production, because a lot of times you end up having to like fill in if they're on vacation and that sort of thing. And if you want, you can just like kind of, like I said, shadow them, meaning that you kind of like, I guess not follow them for a day, but like kind of like see how they do things. They kind of like train you
yeah,
to know how to do their job in case like you again like if they have to go away for vacation or something and somebody needs to fill in. So it was really really great like training that I got. My first job was at Janfield on Thomas.
yeah, yeah,
So I learned so much like through that job, and it was more like I kind of managed like environments and marketing, and I can't even remember the third thing I was managing,
hmm
but
hmm
it was smaller departments. But you get your feet, like you get your, is it your feet wet? Is that
yeah,
the expression? Yeah,
yeah.
your toes wet.
Yeah, you get your feet wet. Yeah, you get feet wet on
Yeah,
just
so you kind of start out like, because production assistant, you don't tend to manage really. You're always working with the higher ups in production, so you're kind of like working mostly with coordinators and managers, not so much directly with the artists themselves. But in
Yeah.
my case, it was more like a coordinator's job really than a production assistant job at Jamfield. So I got to kind of learn how to manage teams. The biggest thing I will say like is do not micromanage, because like if you're too micromanagey, people kind of they're more like guarded.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you kind of have to be careful. It's like I said, it's something you can't learn in school. You have to learn on the job, like how to manage people, how to like speak people's language basically, because
Yeah.
everybody speaks a different their own personal language, so you kind of
Yeah.
have to pick up on that. So
No, I think like any good manager, like you said, you got to be able to manage, but you got to be able to let people do
their
what
work.
they do, work within their genius, and just try and nurture it and kind of guide it along. I think that's the sign of any good manager, for sure. What I mean, you went to Sheridan. And you said that was probably the best experience of going to Sheridan. What do you think you was kind of the biggest thing that you pulled out from Sheridan?
It was just like you have like full access to your creativity, because like the thing I think artists struggle with the most is creative block. um and all the other stressors of life, like job
Yeah,
and family, whatever. But at Sheridan, it was like you're in your own world. You get 8 months to kind of create your final product, right? It's all you, like you get to kind of just like run like freely with like all your ideas, and you get the help you need to kind of make your ideas come to life, and try lots of things. It was just like, yeah, it's like every artist's dream is to like do see what potential you have and make that like materialize. So
yeah,
that's why for me like Sheridan was really like one of the best years of my life, at least my second year at Sheridan in computer animation, because like I felt like I could tap into anything and nothing was right, nothing was wrong. Like
yeah,
everything was like, open window, or you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like it was like open buffet. Yeah,
No,
like really
it
bad with
reminds me
like
of that thought
terminology.
I was watching I happened to be watching DC, superhero Justice League, and there was an episode with Superman, and he was fighting Doomsday, and he was just saying, usually he's always having to kind of restrain himself when he's dealing with, just average criminals, but Doomsday could take it, so it gave him this opportunity to see how strong he could actually be and how much power he actually has. So I think with what you just said, it gave you the freedom to see just what kind of creativity that you could pull out and just tap into, for sure. Do you think that you would go back to, or kind of jump back to, either compositing or visual effects, or is that just done now and you're just focused on line producing and moving up to production coordinator and just moving up as high as you can on the production side?
Yeah, no, definitely the latter. Like, I think the compositing is in the past. But I would say like I do miss like that's why like I've kind of like I do my own art like in my spare time, because
Yeah,
like I don't want to like let that part get rusty, you
yeah,
know. And like professionally I want to move higher up in production, like because like with the last project that you introduced, Kizazi Moto, that was like my first experience working as a producer, and it was a lot really like big learning curve. So for me like I just want to kind of continue up from there,
yeah,
and because like the highest you can get in production is executive producer.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
But that's like after like years and years of, there's a hierarchy to
And what
that.
does an
So like
executive
basically,
producer? What does an executive producer do? That say the person
basically
under him.
basically like an executive producer has final say, final approval of everything before it goes out. So like as a producer you might approve something, but it has to get like their sign off. So it's not like, you can just a-okay something and then like, okay, we're gonna like send it off to like, the final wrap up version and send it off to like client or post.
Yeah,
And so an executive producer really is like the final approval of, the
yeah.
dotted line to make sure that everything is good to go before it airs, essentially.
So where would the director fall in the hierarchy of it?
So basically, like a director is kind of, it's a little bit hard to explain because like a director is they're pretty up there.
Yeah,
So like, but an executive producer would be above a director, but the director still has a lot of like power, I guess,
yeah,
and control because when you're depending on the production, because I can't speak for like all productions, but depending on the production, like the director has to have approval with everything because they're again another like sign off, like they're good with that, then like the executive producer will probably sign off on that too, kind of thing. So yeah, so they're pretty up there with executive producer.
yeah. I think, like you said, it's always, at least I've found it always kind of hard to figure out what exactly does a producer do, what exactly does an executive producer do, what
Yeah,
exactly
I
does
can give a quick rundown.
yeah, yeah,
So basically, like the very first level is production assistant. So you're like, you kind of get your feet wet. You learn the ropes of production. If clients come into town, you got to do the coffee runs.
yeah.
Book. I had to do that.
A high paid
So
assistant.
yeah. So basically, but at least fortunately for me, like I learned a lot in production as an assistant. Then the next level is production coordinators. So they're pretty much like next in line. Basically, they're the ones who start to kind of um, like work with the production manager, which is next up. And they're the ones who primarily manage teams. So like like all the departments, like you have, like I said, you have design, you have layout, you have animation, compositing, like different departments in
Yeah.
the animation production line. And manager is usually like the key person that would like manage teams, and the coordinator is usually working in hand with the production manager. So they're kind of like branches of the manager. So like they might oversee like a department if it's like a lot of work. So we all work together. Like at least in my experience, we always work together as a team: coordinator, manager, producer. So your producer is kind of like um, not your direct boss, but kind of like a supervisor.
Yeah.
So like line producer, we would kind of like oversee, we would deal more with like client stuff and like budget and schedule. That's like primarily like what line producers would be doing.
Mhm.
Um, so then you get to like supervising producers. So like they would oversee like maybe more than like one project. And like senior producer, it kind of falls like it depends really again on the project of how it's categorized, what the responsibilities are. So like the production team, we're always kind of like just making sure that like all the teams, all the departments meet their deadlines. That's like bottom line of what
Yeah.
our job is to make sure that like we meet like our deadlines. We're not like over budget. We hire the teams, like we interview, we hire people. We're the ones who have to put out the fires. We have to make sure that people are relatively happy.
Yeah.
So and we're dealing with all kinds of personalities too. So it's a lot. Like it's a lot to kind of like you have to be like a leader. You have to be a supervisor. You have to be a therapist. You have to be like an accountant.
All
So
of that
it's a
rolled
lot.
into one. I mean, but you are working on one production at a time, and they just have
Um,
separate, or are you working on multiple shows, or and managing multiple shows at a time?
Again, it depends on the studio. So, like, if you're
Yeah,
a supervising producer at, like, say, a bigger studio, you might be overseeing like three separate shows at a time. But for the most part, if you're a producer, you're primarily working on like one project at a time. But again, it depends on your title and depends on, like, sometimes, like, I've worked on two productions at a time in the past. So it's not like not normal to
yeah,
be doing that, but primarily you're just focused on like one show at a time.
yeah,
But it's not unusual to be working on more than one.
yeah, yeah. Oh, interesting. That's a lot of work. And like I said, especially when you sit and look at the credits of what it all everybody that's worked on a production, for sure. You said you kind of dealt with live action. Do you prefer one or the other, live action animation, or as a production person, does it matter to you, or do you prefer one medium over the other?
Well, I initially went into like VFX, so that's like primarily live action
Yeah,
plates, and then you put your animation on top of that. It's cool, but it's more challenging to do. So for me, I felt like, I'm not sure this is like for me. But animation, like, I've always loved it. I've been a huge Disney fan since like Little Mermaid is like the first one I've ever seen. And Aladdin, of course, like, is my favorite because that's the only one
yeah,
I identify with. So,
yeah,
um, so for animation, it holds like a special place in my heart because I felt like such a love for animation and also like cartoons and comics. Like, as a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist. That was like my dream job growing up. I always want
yeah.
to be like the next, like, Bill Watterson, like Calvin and Hobbes, or like Jim
Yeah, I
Davis
wanted to
for
be
like
Charles
Garfield.
Schultz. I wanted to be
So, but
Charles Schultz, so I feel you. Peanuts. I was a big Peanuts fan.
yeah, no, I got to, 'cause a few years back, actually, I wrote a self-help book, and I got to interview Lynn Johnson, who's like the
Yeah,
creator of For Better For Worse,
yeah, for better
and
or
she told
worse.
me like she was friends with Charles Schultz, who's the creator of Peanuts,
Peanuts. Yeah,
and it was really cool. Like, you get to hear all these neat stories of like the fellow cartoonists and stuff like that. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I've been actually still trying to get him on. Ray Billingsley, um, who did Curtis, who does Curtis. And he was telling me when I was talking to him, he was really close friends with Charles Schultz, and like I said, you just listen to the stories of telling them about him. It's interesting because, like I said, I was just a Charles Schultz fanatic, I guess you could say, for sure. Mr. Rayfield, I appreciate you tuning in. As a storyboard artist, I love drawing for a living on animation productions. Thus, I would always shy away from the non-artist um, job offers, and now see that was a huge mistake. Well, I mean, as long as you love what you're doing, animation production. Some people are just kind of geared, like I said, geared towards a certain path, and I think that's the beauty of once you get into animation, you really quickly realize what kind of road you want to go down. Like you said, you start
Mhm.
off visual effects and then realize that's not necessarily the kind of path I wanted to go, compositing. And you get a lot of people, like I said, in animation, you know, they may have thought they wanted to be an animator, but when they got into it, realized, oh, maybe I like being a modeler or a set artist, or, you know, some people are better at managing people, so they go into the production side of it. You know, they may be a decent artist, but they're more, like I said, they're more people oriented and more managing, good managerial skills. So that's I think the beauty of it is you find out you don't necessarily have to be an artist or a rigger or a modeler to get into the industry because there are so many different, like I said,
Yeah, you really don't have to
I
like
mean, you could be an
go
HR, like I
to,
said, HR. They got to have an
yeah.
HR person. They got to have, a recruiter. They got to have all these
Even
people.
accounting, you can go to business school, be an accountant, and work at a studio. Like,
Yeah,
that's like, totally in the realm of that. So,
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, we initially touched on it, about the project you worked on, Kizazi Moto.
mhm.
And as you all know, that's the big release from Disney on Disney Plus, and it's been having a lot of hype, and really looking forward to trying to get some of the creators on the show. What was your experience like working on it? As a producer.
Well, the episode, because it's 10 shorts,
It's
so
yeah,
it's
it's 10 separate
technically,
shorts. So the
yeah, 10
what?
episodes. And we worked on episode 9, which was You Give Me Heart. So for me, it was like I've never worked on a short film before because all I've done in the past was like episodic like series.
Yeah,
And I've done a little bit of live action working in stereoscopic for at the time they're called Stereo Deep, so like live action movies, and you do the the
yeah.
Stereo Deep part of it. Sorry, the I can't talk today. So
No, we're
um,
just having a fun time here. So hey, just go ahead.
oh, I think my Siri just came up.
Uh,
Sorry. Back to the question. Oh, sorry. I just blanked out.
your
So
experience working on,
yes,
you
okay,
saying
there we
you
go.
you kind of did you were used to working on episodic stuff, and this was kind of
Yeah.
your first big foray into working on a film.
So yeah, like, cause it was a small team. So in a way, like we really kind of got through a lot in like a short amount of time. It wasn't like a big scale production. So
Yeah,
like it was really great to kind of work with like small teams, and like it was a lot easier to manage for sure. And like, with the director, he's a very creative guy, and he had a lot of like great ideas and stuff like that, so we were trying on our end to kind of bring that to light, because this was like a 2D animation. It wasn't like 3D, because a lot of the
yeah,
shorts for Kizazi Moto are 3D. I think there's only 4 that are 2D, so
yeah,
we were one of the 4 that are like 2D based. So it was really cool because like the quality that we created was like, really amazing in the time that we did it in. So for me, that was like wow, because like for 2D animation, films, like feature films in general, they're like 3 years long to do.
yeah,
For this was like shorter time, but like we still have like really great quality. And the thing is that like you're trying to tell a whole story within 10 minutes. That was pretty much like the most challenging part, was
mm,
like how do we best tell this story in like this amount of time.
yeah,
So but otherwise it was really terrific experience. I worked with so many like really great talented people, terrific production team. Like
wow.
overall it was like spectacular. Like it was really terrific.
Well, tell me, because I really am curious about this. What do you, working on this? What do you think you kind of learned from, or learned about Africa? Um, and what do you think, if anything, you learned about or kind of pulled away about yourself and your thoughts?
um Well, well, I'm half Egyptian, so I'm technically North African.
Yeah, yeah,
So like for me, it's like it's kind of cool to kind of work with like people that are like from Africa, because like I'm used to working like with people from Canada or the US. So
yeah,
this was like a new experience. And like culture is different, so you kind of like understand like how they do things, and like the time difference too.
yeah,
So yeah, so I think it's like it's so inspiring that there's so many creative people coming from Africa. And like I'm so grateful that Disney Plus, like Disney gave a platform to kind of showcase that, because it's not just North American. Like animation isn't just North American based, it's like
yeah,
universal, like it's all over the world.
yeah,
There's so many like talented people out there. And if you go to like film festivals, like a lot of international stuff, it's like blows your mind, like it's
yeah,
really like amazing. And I'm really like happy I got a chance to kind of experience like a different culture, experience like a different perspective,
yeah.
and from that, that's probably like the best takeaway I got from the whole experience of working on it.
Yeah, no, and I've been saying this for a while. I feel like I feel like the industry over there is really starting to explode. There's always been creators there, of course, but now that you're starting to see companies like Disney, like Netflix, like some of the other companies now are really starting to tap in and really bring. And now that more, we're all crying for more diverse stories, diverse characters. You're starting to see a lot more creators of color and of different cultures start to tell their stories in a more authentic way. So I'm really excited about the industry and kind of where it's going and the possibility of what it can bring. And we kind of talked about this a little before the show. Um, the different the need for your IP and kind of
Hmm.
um, controlling and I won't say controlling, but just having control over your story, your idea. What are your kind of thoughts on more original IP being put out and told and kept in kind of the hands of the creator?
Um, that's a very complex question. So basically, like there's so many right now studios are looking for new ideas, fresh, like talent. Um, People may feel like, oh, like I try and people just keep rejecting me. That's not the case. Like people are looking for the next best thing. I would say, like, if you're a creator and you want your story told, or if you have like a pitch deck, like always contact development head of a studio to see if you can get a meeting.
Mm,
But before you show any of your work, it's really great if you can like have a lawyer, like an entertainment lawyer, draw up an NDA for your project. So at least you have that protected, because in this industry, like, it's good to protect what you can get, because whenever you do make like a deal, say, let's say Netflix, right? You'll have to get like your lawyer, your agent, all of that.
yeah.
So there's a lot of big talks, because like as a creator, you want to kind of retain um, as much rights to it, but like, that's unrealistic in like a bigger like spectrum of like, the industry.
Yeah.
So definitely, like if you're just starting out, there's like so many like competitions and festivals that you can enter your work in, that you retain your like ownership too.
Yeah.
Like I know Nickelodeon does like a pitch contest, like I think around August or September. So it's
Yeah.
open to everybody. In Canada, we have like the Ottawa International Animation Festival, Pitch This. We have Taffy, the big pitch contest. So a lot of people, they can like enter their stuff and like it's theirs. It's not like, you have to sign off like your rights to anything. So
Right.
if say like you get picked as a finalist, you get to meet a lot of like executive producers who would be interested in talking to you about your IP and like seeing how you can further like develop it, if like that's what they choose to do, because having an IP and shopping it around is not easy.
Mhm.
If some studio does show interest in your work, you might have like a shopping deal where they'll retain it, but you can't show it to other studios
Anybody
during
else?
that time
Yeah.
frame. Yeah, and then also you might have to sign like compromise a lot of things as well if they choose to like move ahead and actually bring it to development. And
Yeah.
it takes years for that to happen. It's not like overnight. Like, I think most people are thinking like, oh, Stranger Things, like I have an idea like that, I'm gonna like hit it big, so it's not that at all. Like some people
Yeah.
are just lucky. They
Yeah.
might have a really cool idea and it just takes off like that, and it's a surprise hit, like Stranger Things was.
Yeah.
Because initially it was only supposed to be like one season, and then it kind of spawned
Yeah.
into like
Just
now
kind of
it's going
took
to
a
be
life
five
of its
seasons.
own. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I'm a huge, huge, huge Stranger Things fans. Like I went
Yeah.
to see the exhibition in like Toronto. It's like the Stranger Things experience was like really cool. So I'm just saying, like things like that, like it's not very frequent. And especially if you're not in the animation industry, it's a lot harder because the reality is a lot of people who are showrunners and create their own shows spent years being a writer on shows, or
Mm,
like, they've directed and then they have an idea and they're at that level where, producers would like to work with them. So they're kind of already established, before they actually do their own thing. So that's what I'm trying to get at, is that
yeah,
the reality of it is that you've already have to have worked in the industry for a long time to kind of get closer to getting your own stuff out there. But that's not to say to discourage people from, wanting to do your own thing. The best way to do it is to have your own social media platform.
yeah,
If you have a cool idea, people are going to like see that, and the
yeah,
best way to do it is put it on any platform that you like TikTok is probably number one. Instagram as well.
yeah. Or
Like if you have an
YouTube,
idea,
like I said,
just yeah.
yeah. And trust me, like I said, if you do that, and I say this all the time, if you do that and it does like Stranger Things and just takes off and finds its following, trust me, those
Hmm.
studios will come a knocking. You know,
Yeah, that's actually how a lot of studios, are looking for new
yeah,
ideas.
they're
They
doing
see
the
what's
same
trending.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah, they're seeing what's going viral on social media, what's trending, what's getting a lot of buzz, and like that's how like a lot of content creators are suddenly having their own shows, on broadcast.
yeah,
So it's not like, they're knocking at their doors. It's the other way around. Like CEOs are knocking on the individual creators' doors
yeah,
because of their huge followings. And that's
yeah,
like the number one way to get your stuff out there.
yeah, for sure. And it definitely puts you in a better position of power. Well, I won't say power. It just puts you in a better position when you've already built your following, and they come knocking on your door. It definitely puts you, I think, in a better position on whether or not you even want to entertain it or not. I think, like I said, I've heard a number of stories about YouTubers that have just these massive shows that have been approached and they've turned it down because, like I said, they're making more money from their YouTube channel and they can speak directly to their audience as opposed to giving up control of whatever it is that they've created. Again, for those just jumping in and tuning in, we're having a fun conversation with my friend Amal Samuel, and we're going to take a look in a little bit on some of her personal work before we dive back into talking a little more about uh, her work, where she's going, and just her thoughts on the industry. So let's take a quick look at some of her work here. She has an amazing style, for sure, that I found interesting. Um, almost kind of cubist. I mean, how would you? But that's not her whole style. It's just this particular piece here. But what is it? I mean, how does your personal work kind of help fuel, you know, line producing and other stuff that you do?
For me, like, I mean, like, my artwork doesn't really like, how can I say, like, it kind of like it's kind of disconnected from line producing because that's like it's a whole other thing. For me, I just like, I just love doing art, and I feel more connected to the artists I work with when I do like my own stuff.
Yeah,
And you learn a lot from artists. I've learned tons from like, my like animation supervisors, like designers, like that I probably wouldn't have learned elsewhere. So for me, it's like another kind of like schooling that like you won't get directly from school.
yeah,
so
yeah,
um so for me, it's just more kind of like uh not letting that artist in me die, because honestly I would love to just create my own content, like as an artist. Like I have like the show I'm working on, that I'm like this show idea that I have, that I've worked on a pitch deck for,
yeah,
that I'm writing like scripts for. I really would love to kind of create my own content that will end up like being a show one day. Like that's the ultimate dream for me. So
yeah, yeah. And I think I like I said, there's been very few um, creators that I've had on the show, regardless of what position they were doing. Usually, animator or like in 3D, that weren't doing their own. They still weren't working on their own kind of projects, whatever that may be, their own artwork, their own painting. And for some, it's just a way of, like I said, releasing and feeding that other creative side of them that kind of still keeps them connected to what they're doing. Do you find that kind of like you just said the case for you? It just kind of helps continue to feed that creative juices in you to
Yeah,
do.
like for sure, like working in production has given me a unique perspective on like how shows are developed, like what shows make it, what shows don't. So I know firsthand like what it takes to make a good show that, people who are say like, just working as artists might not have that like insight to.
Yeah,
So I'm just saying like that's the main connection I would get from like what I do like in production as an artist. Like I know what it would take to make like say a successful story idea or really great like character designs that works well in animation that are easy to rig, that sort of thing. So I kind
yeah,
of take that insight from working in production, having started like from development all the way to post, that knowledge I can bring apply it to my own stuff for
yeah,
things that I would hope in the future I can actually develop. So
yeah. Now, I often said that about myself. I would love to work in a studio on the. Well, I mean, I'm a creator, love to animate, but I would love to work to learn the process. I think that, like I said, if you're the type that's trying to get your own stuff out there, learning the whole process of what it takes to put a production together, I think
mhm.
is priceless knowledge. And a lot of people do kind of move into whether it's a writer moving into production or whether it's an animator kind of moving into production because they are wanting to get that kind of knowledge of, okay, what does it take to put the whole production together so that I can apply that to my thing that I'm wanting to do and move forward. What do you think's been for you the best piece of advice that somebody's given you that's kind of helped you along the way?
Oh wow. Hmm. I know like one of my first producers, like at least for me for production is again, like I said, like don't be so micromanaging because people won't trust you. So that's like a big advice that's helped me to learn how to like balance like, putting your foot down, but also like being on their side to help them,
Yeah,
like help the artists kind of like meet their goals. So definitely that was probably the best advice I got. Also, like you need to have your own space, like your own downtown. Like don't bring your like I know with the COVID, like there's kind of like a blurred line between work and home because you're working from home.
yeah,
So make sure that like you're not like working late if you don't need to. Really, like your mental health is important because, like, when COVID
yeah,
happened, like a lot of people were struggling with like how do I deal with like this new environment, this new normal, and some
yeah,
people didn't deal well with like just being isolated every day rather than being in the studio with people. So that was like a big learning curve to kind of like understand how people are because in the past we were like, oh, it's mental health, like they take it as a sick day or whatever, but it's important.
yeah.
You have to like keep your sanity intact.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, for sure, and especially and I've talked about kind of this with other especially visual effects artists. I mean, with everybody in the industry, it affects that way. But I was talking to a visual effects artist because it seemed to be at the time you were hearing a lot about VFX artists really getting stressed out, overworked, feeling like and there was this big thing at the time, um, you know, because Marvel was doing all these effects heavy
mhm.
stuff, they were putting a lot of pressure on the artists to get all these shots and work done.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's, like I said, in this time where, like you said, the style of, animation, the style of movies has changed so drastically over the years. You know, animation isn't like it was when Toy Story started 3D. It's so much more complex.
Yeah.
Movies
Into the
are
Spider Verse,
into
big,
the
big
Spider
example of
Verse,
that. And now the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that's coming out in August, like that's kind of a departure from like how 3D film, like animation has been done.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like we're opening like new realms of that as well. So it's really exciting time right now in animation.
yeah, yeah. Well, and speaking of that, because I have to throw this in because this is kind of the big buzzword now. Your thoughts on AI and how it's gonna affect or not affect, what you're doing, and touch the industry where you're at. Have you thought about that, or has that been a conversation even within the
Oh,
studio?
yeah. There's been a conversation with like artists I know because, like you don't want people to, you don't want to be replaced by a robot, really.
Yeah,
I mean, like if you go to McDonald's, you have the kiosks that, take over instead of going to the counter and ordering your food. You just do it
yeah,
through like a computer, right? So,
yeah,
in the same sense, like I don't think like you see the AI generated art. It looks like somebody could have done it. Like it would have taken hours for like an artist to do. They do it in 2 seconds because it generates from like a lot of samples, right?
yeah,
Um, I think it's like people think that's like the easy way out. If you want like art done for like say your idea, it's not because
yeah,
like you you still need that human insight, that human talent to really get like your idea out there. It's like
yeah,
you can't depend on a robot to read your mind, really.
yeah,
So I think for our industry, like for artists at least, like designers, I think that's where it would hit the most for AI. Like I wouldn't bank on like a studio just using AI to get like their artwork or concept art done because like you just like
yeah.
it might be cool to kind of get an idea of what it could be,
Yeah,
but it doesn't take from like it really doesn't replace what like a talented artist can do.
yeah, yeah. No, that's my feeling exactly. I look at it as a tool, specifically an ideation tool that
Hmm.
really kind of helps jumpstart ideas for you and maybe give you a path to go down. But I
Yeah, like a
definitely,
quick guideline or
yeah, a quick
sketch of something.
guideline or
So
an outline of what you're trying to get accomplished. I definitely don't feel like it's gonna replace the artist, um, because it's just you're not gonna take the artist. It's just something an artist can bring that a computer is not gonna. That's my feeling. Now, other people may feel a different way. I still feel like I said it's really early in the game, and really early in this AI kind of craze, and so there's still a
mhm.
lot. I feel like there's still a lot of legalities, and you know,
I think it would affect the music industry the most because you can copy somebody's voice and then just like write a song and then have that voice make it sound like someone else, a real like singer singing that song, and then you have to prove that it's not that. Like I think that's where it's going to hit the most.
yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think I saw I saw a Facebook video. I think it was Leonardo DiCaprio, but he was talking in other actors' voices uh, on some bit. So that's what I mean. It's going to be interesting. They still have all the legislation that goes along with it that they have to work out because, like you said, it there is this possibility that it can be used the wrong way, like any tool can. But I am excited about what AI can do in the hands of creators because I have seen some interesting ways of how AI was used with some creators. What was I watching? Actually, it was Film Riot. They have a YouTube channel. They're filmmakers, but they put videos out of just doing different shots and visual effect shots and stuff like that. And they showed how they did recreated some kind of movie shot in this Gothic church with this guy, kind of floating and rocks kind of floating. They show how they put it together in After Effects, but they used AI to generate just the background, a background
Hmm.
image, and then they shot the actor, doing his thing and put in the 3D elements and stuff. So it was really just a tool that they used to actually enhance what they were doing. They were still creating the shot, but they used it. They didn't have to model
Yeah,
the
it's
church
like a
background.
blueprint.
Yeah, it's just a
Basically, like
blueprint.
you can do a quick matte painting in the background with AI to kind of
That's what they
like
used
help
it
to
for.
position, what needs to be done in that scene. So,
Yeah. That's what they used it for to create a matte painting. They just gave it prompts. So we're looking for a dark Gothic style church, and gave it some other prompts, and it just created a matte image that they used in the background. And I think that's fine. I think doing it that way because you're not putting it out as the whole thing being AI generated. You just used AI to
yeah,
generate
I
a
I think
certain element.
for yeah, basically like just concept ideas. I think I like AI would be very helpful tool for that, but it's not like your final idea, like
Yeah,
it just kind of helps you like make your brain work to think of what you really want to do.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I did get a chance to read your comic strip, uh, Hope and a Bear, which I thought was kind of funny. I talked to me because, like I said, it was close to me because, like you said, you wanted to be a comic strip artist when you were younger. I wanted to be a comic strip artist as well, and I created my own comic strip. What was the genesis? Although I could pick it up while I was reading it, but what was the genesis for Hope and a Bear?
It was basically initially like, cause it was funny because I was taking these, cause I've never found cartooning classes anywhere when I was like in
Really?
school, and I've discovered at George Brown College like night classes. They had a whole like certificate in cartooning. I was like, this is like news to me. I've never heard of it in my life. And I was like, sweet, like, it's night classes. You pay like some
Yeah, yeah,
money to take like a 12-week course. And that just opened the doors to like, wow, like this is what I wanted to do. And so it came out as an idea in one of my classes. Like I like bears. So like, and I kind of like at the time I kind of thought, oh, it'd be kind of funny to tell like a relationship story to kind of base it on me and my husband and like the qualities of the bear is really like his qualities.
yeah. I
So,
was reading
but he
that.
became his own character. It started out like, oh, it could be just like a little funny satire about like us kind of
Yeah,
things. That was like the main background
yeah,
for it. But now they're kind of like their own characters. I have to really like, I took a little bit of a break from it, but I am working on some new ideas for it because I do like the characters and I definitely want to see like more stories and adventures with them
yeah,
because like for me like I'm working on like I'm always like I guess that's why I'm good in production because like I have to be doing five things at the same time. I can't like I have trouble like sometimes just doing one thing, then I'll work on something else. So I'm always juggling like five things at the same time. So
yeah,
like I would be working on the comic strip, I'd be working on my pitch deck, I would be working on some character designs, I would be working on a script, like I would be doing all of that always at the same time. And I think that's like good and bad at the same time
yeah,
because sometimes
yeah.
you really need like your focus on one thing
Focus.
at a time. Yeah. But that's
Yeah,
how I've always like rolled. I'd be like, watching TV, drawing, and like listening to YouTube at the same time. So like I'm always like
wow.
that. So
Now that's a skill. That's a skill for sure. Again, having a fun conversation with my friend Amel. Now, now let me ask you, if say Hope and the Bear just took off and a syndication came to you, man, we love this cartoon, let's roll with it. Would that be something that you would say shift to as opposed to product line producing? If you
Um,
had the opportunity to be a cartoonist, comic strip artist like you wanted.
I would. I mean, like my first instinct response is yes. But I mean, that's like a lifetime dream of mine. So, like, whenever you get those moments where, like, oh, this is my dream come true happening, like you
Yeah,
can't like ignore it kind of
yeah,
things. And it's not like you have to do it forever. It's just like you might want to take a departure from
yeah,
what you're doing currently and just try something new because, like, you get like people doing the same thing like for years at a time, they're gonna get bored at one point.
yeah,
Like it's always, I'm not saying like, production is boring because it's not. Like
yeah,
you never know
yeah,
what each day is gonna bring you. But I'm just saying, like, if you always wanted to do something and you finally have the opportunity to do it, like, just jump out there and do it. Like,
yeah,
nothing, like there's only good that comes from that. And if it doesn't work out, then fine, like you already have a career in something else,
yeah,
so like I would totally like just try that for a year and see where that
yeah,
goes.
yeah. No, and I think that's uh, another beauty of being a creative. You're always, you're working on different things. You have different ideas. Um, your thought is just, I'm creative. I mean, I'm not a photographer, but I love photography. I love taking pictures. Um, you know, so having that opportunity, like I said, I think that's a big thing. Uh, Taking advantage of the opportunities of your dream, if it presents itself, is a big thing, and I think an important thing, for sure. Um, for you, what are the type of stories that you're kind of hoping to, you know, bring about? You mentioned you're passionate about, the BIPOC movement and advocating for BIPOC people. You yourself said you're, Egyptian. There's, like you said, outside of Aladdin, I haven't seen too many, and that
At
caught its
least in the
flack, and
90s, so yeah.
that's caught its flack. So, what are kind of the stories that you're hoping to that you would like to see come to fruition more, and that you would kind of like to really sink your teeth into?
Um, for me, like I said, I'm half Egyptian, half Indian. If people didn't know,
Yeah,
so and there's like a lot of richness in both cultures. So like I would love to see more like Egyptian based, or like Middle Eastern
yeah,
culturally
yeah,
like represented like in I guess North America.
yeah,
um, so because I don't know, like I feel like sometimes Middle Eastern we get a bad rap. It's like there's so many diversities within like that culture alone.
yeah,
So it's not like you know everything from like one representation. So it would be great to kind of showcase more of that, like kind
yeah,
of like with like the like with Kizazi Moto, like you
yeah,
see kind of that new perspective from
yeah,
Africa. So
yeah,
it'd be kind of cool to see more like perspectives from different Middle Eastern countries, India as well. I mean, like there's Bollywood, of course,
yeah,
but you're seeing more like Indian influenced shows and ideas, which I think is super cool. And like I just love like learning about cultures in general. Like I would, if I had like if I woke up and won the lottery tomorrow, and I got lottery tickets. Um, I would first thing is like, travel all the places I always just read about in books and just actually like, meet people and experience their culture and learn so much from that because I find like, like people tend to be like close minded. They
yeah.
only see one thing and then they think that's the whole
Yeah,
thing for
that's the
like say a
whole of
certain
it. Yeah.
culture.
Mm,
That's the whole of it. It's not like there's so much in this world to discover, to learn. Like I just don't understand people who kind of like don't want to like open up to other cultures.
yeah.
It's very like it's kind of sad if you're like closed minded in that way.
Yeah.
Like I would love to learn as much as I can about like because I don't want to look like an idiot when I
Yeah,
talk to somebody from some other culture and I don't know anything about it, you know. So
yeah,
like
and
I want to learn as much as I can about something new. So like for
yeah,
me, I'm like a lifelong student. Like I will always try to learn something new every day. So
yeah, yeah. And before I comment on that, that deserves an explosion because you have to be. That's a great piece of advice. You're always a like, you know, the journey of learning never stops. I think
hmm
that's the mistake a lot of people make. They feel like, oh, okay, I graduated from school, high school, so my days of learning are over. You know, that type of thing. And that's definitely not the case. And it's funny what you were just mentioning about, Egypt and India. There's this whole broad it's swath of it, and like you said, maybe India, our thought would be like you said, Bollywood. We think we want to paint the country, the continent and the country as a whole like that. And I got had the same conversation with my last week's guest, who is animator and a 3D artist from Nigeria, and I had asked him, what was kind of the big misconception that he felt like Westerners had about Africa and just the content. And he, we were talking about like the Western world, and particularly over here, we think one thing and it paints Africa
hmm
like that as a whole. And we were talking about just dialect. And he was saying,
yeah.
most people think that, they take the dialect from South Africa and they feel like everybody from Africa talks like that, has that
Yeah, no,
same
it's the same
dialect, and
in
it's
the Middle
not the
East. Like
case.
if you like Egyptian, like Arabic is quite different than like if you speak it in like Saudi Arabia. That's totally different.
Yeah.
So it's like again like English, like America, like they have like you have northern, you have southern,
Yeah, and then
then
you
you
have
have
a
like
proper English over in Britain type of
yeah.
thing. So it's just this, we tend to paint things in this one swath when there's so much more nuances within a country, within a continent that we just need to be exposed. And see it. It's funny because I was asking them. I always like to ask, especially the creators from Africa, what their thoughts was and how they perceived like Black Panther. And he was like saying, yeah, we loved it. It was a great movie, but we sit there and watch it like, Africans don't talk like that, or have that accent. Like, they can immediately pick up the nuances of where the dialect is that they're trying to talk. Whereas I was saying, most Americans, they're not going to be able to distinguish just the nuances of an accent.
Yeah,
Whereas,
exactly.
you
If you're
know,
not from there,
yeah,
like
if you're
you,
not
it'll
from
pass over
there,
you.
we'll just think that's just the accent that's spoken all across Africa. When you, as an African viewer, you can pick up, well, that accent doesn't sound good, or he's trying to speak like this, but they're saying he's from this region and he doesn't. So it's like, that's what I mean, when that's why it's very important for creators um, to be able to tell their own story, because they can tell it in their own authentic way, and we
Yeah,
learn
their
from that.
authentic voice.
Yeah, their own authentic voice, and we learn from that. So that's why I'm super excited about Kizazi Moto. Were there any? I mean, I know you love the project as a whole, and I definitely know you love the particular episode short that you worked on. But was there any other short that you looked at and saw that it was like, oh, that's pretty cool? I really like
Oh,
that.
I when it came out, yeah, I binge watched the whole thing. Like I
Yeah,
just sat and watched it all
yeah,
because I only saw like pieces of it here and there, but I never knew what everything was going to look like in the final version. So definitely, the third episode for me, like if you watch it, episode three was really great. Like I thought that was like amazing. Like
yeah,
I loved like the animation. I love the look. I love the story. for me, I really enjoyed episode, like aside of our episode, I really liked episode 3.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
just all of them, they're very like visually like it's like you're watching it and you're like, wow, like I can't believe like they did this in this amount of time. That's for
yeah,
me, that's what I may take away, because I knew like how long it would take to do
yeah,
it. So
yeah,
for what the quality that you're getting, it's like mind blowing. So
yeah,
like, like definitely watch every single episode
yeah,
and watch it more than once, because like sometimes like I know some stories like in the short amount of time that you have to tell it, you might have to watch it a couple of times to really get it.
yeah,
So like it might not be very direct right away, but that's why I would always like for anything really like just watch it more than
yeah,
once, and then it'll speak to you differently. And
yeah.
but
And
for
you'll
me, like I
pick
really
up,
enjoyed
yeah, you'll
episode 3.
pick up different things as you watch it
Yeah.
more and more. I didn't notice that the first time or something. I'm trying to get and Raymond Malinga on. Um, I'm not sure which episode he did uh, or directed, but I've been kind of going back and forth with him, trying to get him on. And definitely, like I said, it's one of those ones that you have to watch a couple of times, and new revelations and new things will always come up to you. But like I said, what I do love about it, I haven't seen it yet, is just like I said, the varying styles, you know, in the
Hmm.
way that stories are told. Do you feel like with the emergence of Into the Spider Verse, that kind of it seems like more and more animation styles are kind of trying to come close to that um,
Yeah, because
style?
if you've seen like the latest one, Into the Spider Verse, like
Yeah,
it's part one.
yeah,
It was like when I was watching in the cinema, I was like, "Whoa, this is like information over, like visual overload." Because like I was like trying to like cap just kind of take in every single scene I was looking at. There was so much going on. I'm
yeah,
like, how do they put like three styles of animation in the same scene? Like 2D, 3D,
yeah,
in between kind of thing. And I know it's all shaders and stuff, but for people who don't know like the in depth like knowledge of that, it's just like it's really pushing the envelope of visually, like, because like I think the thing is with that, it's like I think 3D animation is trying to look like get more into the concept art look of a film.
yeah,
And I think this is a trend with like Into the Spider Verse. Like like if you look at the art book, it's very it's like, oh wow, like it's like what I'm looking in the art book is what I'm
yeah,
looking at on screen, and that's like the final version of it.
yeah,
Because if you look at like past concept art books, because I love like the art of Pixar, the
yeah,
art of Disney series. So it's really interesting to see like how the final outcome has been developed, and a lot of times it starts out very differently. So when you see something like Into the Spider Verse or like the new Ninja Turtles movie coming out, it's like, wow, it looks just like the painting in the book, you
yeah,
know? So it's
yeah,
like, I really like that it's kind of that blend of, 2D, 3D. You can't like really tell at times.
yeah,
So it's really, really cool. So I think like that's a really neat trend that's happening now in like 3D animation. And I hope like it continues to kind of like push visually like something that you're not used to seeing,
yeah,
like that Spider-Man like kind of like did. So yeah, I'm looking forward to like all the new stuff. Like I'm
yeah,
always like excited watching like 3D films, because I always feel like inspired after I've watched a 3D movie. Like I feel like, okay, damn, like I have to go back and start this idea. I have to draw now. Like it's
yeah.
very
That's
like
that's a fine edged sword because you can come out discouraged or you can come out really inspired to get.
like pumped,
Like man,
like I'm creative now. It's like my creative element. So yeah,
that's
definitely
good.
if you're
Yeah,
not if you're having a creative block, just go watch like a
yeah,
animated film. Like you'll get
yeah,
out of it pretty soon.
yeah. Or like you said, go through the art of book will really inspire you. And like I said, I think that was the biggest thing that really stuck out to me with the Spider Verse movies was because I'm a comic book. It didn't look like just an animated comic book because they really worked hard at capturing the
Yeah, I
and
was gonna
old
say
style
that's
comic
like
book. You know, the half tone, the
Yeah.
BAMs. It just like was just an animated comic book. So that's what really stuck out to me. And I think I don't know if you saw this too. This was a really good animated movie on Netflix. Um, Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Yeah, actually, it's
That
the
was
same
another one.
director.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the
that was
same director for the new Ninja Turtles movie that
okay.
directed that. So it's
Yeah,
kind of, he brings a little bit of that influence to it. So,
yeah, but that was another very well stylized
hmm,
animation. Mitchell's versus the Machine, and plus it was funny too. You know, I thought it was really
I
funny.
think, yeah, actually, this is a really cool question. Like, do you think a movie will be as successful if it's visually like breathtaking and the story's not that great, or if the story is really great but the visuals aren't that great? Which one do you think would be more successful?
Well, I think it always starts with the story. I think if
Hmm.
the story's not good, doesn't matter what visuals you put. At least that's my opinion. Doesn't, and I think Pixar really kind of hammered home the importance of story. They were always story first, and
Yeah.
they worked the visuals or whatever it is they were trying to accomplish around the story. Now I've seen, and I've used this as an example. And it's not a full blown film. Um, I would consider it a short, and it's not even kind of, well, it is story driven, but it was and the guy that did it, Ryan Woodard, was a Disney animator, but it was his own little project. But it's just 2D. It's just sketch. It's a sketch animation of two, a sketch animation of two dancers dancing together um, with this song. Beautifully done, but it was so simple of a drawing, you know, and paired with the music. So I think it's just it really, to me, it starts with the idea and the story behind it, and it doesn't
Hmm.
matter whether it could be a stick figure. I saw one, and I think this is on um, Netflix. It's a short. Um, uh, what's the title of it? By the way, I love you, or something like that. And it's about this little girl who, I hate to be a spoiler. I hate to be a spoiler of it, but it's about this little girl who gets killed during a school shooting, and just the relationship of their parents mourning over it, type of thing. But it was a very simple 2D style drawing. It wasn't any, 3D. It wasn't any elaborate, even 2D like some of the ones that you see. Very simple drawing, but the story was so powerful. It made it very compelling. So I think it always starts with the idea and the story for me.
Yeah, no, same here. Like, you can have like a blockbuster VFX film, and if the
Yeah,
story
and when you've
sucks, no
seen
one's
enough
going to
of
see
them,
it.
they put a buttload of money into visual effects, but the story was crap, so it
You
flopped.
would think that they would put a bigger budget on like writers, like having like, like we got to nail this script and everybody has to like see how good it is before we move forward with production. Um, so it's just more, I don't know, it's like all sorts of things that come down to how or why a movie gets made in the end. So,
Yeah.
like I really think like story is the key to making anything successful.
Oh yeah.
So,
Hence, that's a great segue into the writers' strike. And
mhm.
writers going on strike because, like I said, I don't feel like they're valued as much as they really should be. Because, like I said, it does come down to story first. There's way too many film animations out there that they just threw a buttload of money towards, hoping they would get a return on it, and the story just tanked it because it wasn't great. It
Yeah.
just wasn't a great story, or written well. Like I said, you can pull up so many. Mr. Jeff, I appreciate you tuning in there. Super talented artist with Disney there. Love it. Art books. So art of books totally help give insight to each film's process. Yeah, that's what I say. I was looking at uh, Mitchell and the Machines art book
Hmm.
and how they were really trying, because they knew the style they wanted to. It pretty much mirrored the drawings, and it was just so well done. So that's why I think behind the scenes and making ofs and art books are really great because they really give you a good insight on the process of putting it together and the decisions that they made.
No, totally. That's why like I still collect them to this day.
Yeah, I'm trying to get better at it. Yeah, I admit I'm falling behind. Mr. Jeff said again. Wow, hold on here, Jeff. Let me get your comment up here. So true. Story first, then visually appealing. Hopefully, hopefully both. Well, I'll say hopefully both. Yeah, story first. That's my 2 cents. Story first, which is why I'm
Hmm.
trying to get better at writing. And then the visuals will come along with it. I think when you nail down the story, then you'll start to the visuals will start to flow. Oh,
Yeah, no,
okay.
totally. Yeah.
I appreciate that, Kevin. If anything, it's called "If Anything Happens, I Love You." That's the name of the short on Netflix. Where I was just talking about the little girl. Super simple, like I said, just super simple, but it was such a powerful little short animation. So they definitely had a great story that they put behind it. Mr. Jeff. Yeah, man. I'm glad you tuned in live, man. You just you don't come show me any love anymore, brother. You know, I'm still coming out to get my rice for sure. So, no, this has been a great interview with Amel, and definitely, like I said, looking forward to. I always say the time goes by just way too fast. We're
I
an
know it
hour.
flew by.
Yeah, and we're an hour and a half into this, for sure. But like I said, I love the opportunity of being able to have guests and friends back on. So for me, it's been amazing conversation, for sure. And I definitely didn't dive into a lot of the stuff that I wanted to. We'll save that for the next one episode, for sure. But I so appreciate you taking some time out, coming on the show, being a part of the Color of Motion family. I told you this even before the show. I love meeting and connecting with so many talented people and building relationships. So to have you as part of the Color of Motion family is just an honor and a privilege, Amel, and can't thank you again enough.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. This was like a blast.
For sure. Like I said, you definitely want to make sure that you get connected with Amel, uh, and check out her comic strip, Hope and a Bear. It's kind of funny, for sure. You kind of see that Calvin and Hobbes kind of influence as well a little there, uh, for sure. Uh, Let me throw this up here. You can connect with her on Instagram. She has a couple of Instagram channels there, for sure. Definitely check out her comic strip, Hope and the Bear. It's funny, and you'll definitely enjoy it. All this information for sure will be on the show notes, uh, on the YouTube channel. So definitely make sure that you hop on over there and connect with her. Again, Amel, I'm so looking forward to having you back on because I know. Oh, before I let her go, she is looking for in transition. She just finished up, like I said, Kizazi Moto, so she is definitely open for work. So for all you people out there in the industry that's working on a project or getting ready to start a project, definitely reach out and connect with her, for sure. I know and we talked a little bit about this as well. That's a thing. I feel like studios are kind of going towards where they're bringing on more contract people than they, are people that are actually employees. And so there's always this influx of people looking for work once a project, you know, stops or is completed. So they're always having to start to look for their next gig. So just to let you know that she is looking for her next opportunity. So, like I said, if you are a studio or a creator or working on something, definitely she is open for that. So connect with her. Like I said, all her information will be on the show notes for sure. So again, Amel, cannot thank you enough again for being on the show. And thank you for sharing your insight, your passion, and your love of the industry with us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, and hopefully people enjoyed this listening to me, because like I'm like kind of new to like like being on video, so
Trust me,
so
you aren't the
I've
first
had like
person
lots of
that.
Zoom chats, but like yeah, this is new to me, so like I'm really excited for whoever reaches out to. I hope anything I've said helps you in some way, or like gives you some insight into something that you're interested in, a little bit more about the industry. And yeah, like I said, I'm open to like opportunities. I love character design as well. And yeah, if you want to connect, just like hit me up on LinkedIn or like Instagram. I'm always posting new artwork every day, so yeah.
For sure, for sure. Definitely, like I said, I'm very uh, aware that I just lost my train of thought. But definitely aware that it's always a challenge moving from project to project and finding that next thing and connecting, which is why it's very important to build relationships within the industry because that's how opportunities present themselves for sure.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's the other key thing. Always have like be like in good tidings with like everybody, so
don't
because you
burn
never know.
bridges. Don't burn bridges.
Yeah, always have respect for people. Like,
Yeah,
don't act like a jerk because people will remember you as a jerk. So
yeah,
just make
and
sure that you use common sense and good manners to
yeah.
kind of like be like a person that people remember and want to work with. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Personality goes a long, long way in this industry. And with that,
reputation too, so
yeah,
that's another thing. That Oh yeah, that's the other advice I got that I forgot to say earlier. That's a good advice from my teacher from Sheridan. Like, your reputation will carry in this industry, so make sure that like you know always be respectful to others, and again, don't be a jerk. So
yeah. Now they don't care how talented you are. Their main thing is uh, can can our can people work with you? Can we
yeah,
work
because
with
you
you
can
on this
be like
project?
the most talented person on the
Yeah,
planet, but if you're difficult, people will know that first. So like make sure that you're like you just you make an effort to like uh be the best version of yourself when you're working with others. So
yeah, yeah, for sure. It goes a long, long way. With that, I think we are going to close out this episode. I know all of you gained some great insight. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed doing this. Um, if you could, Amel, hang out in the
mhm.
green room for just 1 second while I close out the show. I really appreciate it. But everybody, please help me thank again my special friend and guest, Amal Samuel, for coming on and just gracing us with her presence. Hang out for just 1 second while I close out the show. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this as much as, like I said, I've enjoyed it for sure. You know how I roll. I am constantly trying to make this the best show that I possibly can, and I can because of the great friends and guests that I have come on the show, and you, the viewers that help continue to support the show. Appreciate that, Mr. Kevin. I know Amel does as well. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. And everybody else that came in, and will catch the replay. I know you're going to enjoy it as well. Please make sure that you tune in next week because, again, we're just rolling right along with the color of motion and trying to bring on the best possible people that we can. And next week, for sure, is no exception. Mr. Ruel Smith, VFX supervisor and director. Super looking forward to talking with him. Connected with him a little over a year ago. So super excited about sharing what he's been working on, some of his work and his thoughts on the industry as well. So you definitely don't want to miss out on that for sure. So with that, like I said, we bringing this train into the station. Can't thank you enough, the viewers, for always tuning in and supporting the show. It really means a lot. Really helps to encourage and inspire me to keep going and keep doing this. All the friends and guests that come on to the show, they help inspire and help motivate me to keep doing this as well. So I can't thank you enough for that, for sure. So with that, like I said, it's has been a fun episode to do and work on. I will see you same bat time, same bat channel next week. So definitely don't want to miss out on that. So see everybody next week. Again, same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers, everybody.